The rusty pickup truck coughed twice before finally rolling through the front gates of Hawthorne Industrial Group. Employees walking into the headquarters glanced toward it with curious smiles. Among rows of polished luxury sedans and executive SUVs, the faded blue truck looked completely out of place. Its paint had peeled after years beneath the sun. One headlight had a thin crack. The tailgate carried scratches from countless construction jobs. Yet the engine still ran smoothly because its owner cared for it better than he cared for himself. Behind the steering wheel sat Daniel Brooks. 43 years old. A widowed single father. Every morning before work, he packed lunch for his 9-year-old daughter, Lily, braided her hair, and walked her to the school bus before driving to whichever maintenance contract awaited him. Life hadn't been easy since his wife passed away 5 years earlier. Medical bills had emptied nearly every savings account they owned. Daniel quietly sold almost everything of value except 2 things. His small family home. And the old pickup truck. People often asked why he didn't replace it. Daniel always smiled. This truck has earned the right to grow old. Few understood what he meant. That truck had carried the very first equipment used to build a business that would one day become Hawthorne Industrial Group. Long before glass headquarters and billion-dollar contracts, it had transported steel beams, toolboxes, blueprints, and dreams. Daniel never mentioned that part. The past belonged in memories, not conversations. On that particular Monday morning, Daniel had been hired by an outside contractor to repair a malfunctioning emergency generator in Hawthorne's research building. He parked near the maintenance entrance and picked up his worn toolbox. Just as he reached the sidewalk, another vehicle stopped beside him. A sleek black luxury sedan. The rear door opened. Out stepped Victoria Hawthorne. 38 years old. CEO of Hawthorne Industrial Group. Business magazines described her as one of the youngest manufacturing executives in the country. Employees admired her intelligence. Investors respected her discipline. She had inherited leadership after her father's retirement and expanded the company into international markets. Victoria glanced briefly toward Daniel's truck. She smiled politely at first. Then she noticed one of the executives laughing nearby. That truck actually made it here. Another executive joked. I thought the museum would be looking for it. Several people laughed. Victoria couldn't help smiling. She looked toward Daniel. You know, our employee parking lot is around the back. We usually keep contractor vehicles away from the executive entrance. Daniel nodded respectfully. I'm sorry. I wasn't aware. Her eyes returned to the faded truck. You may also want to consider replacing it. It doesn't exactly inspire confidence. The nearby executives laughed again. Daniel simply smiled. This old truck has surprised people before. Victoria folded her arms. I'm sure it has. She walked toward the headquarters without another thought. Daniel quietly carried his toolbox inside. He wasn't offended. People judged the truck almost every day. He had become accustomed to it. Inside the maintenance office, the facility manager greeted him warmly. Morning, Daniel. Generator problem. Looks that way. As Daniel inspected the emergency power system, he quickly noticed that the issue wasn't mechanical at all. Someone had installed an incompatible control module during a previous repair. Replacing expensive equipment wasn't necessary. The system simply needed someone who understood the original design. Within 45 minutes, Daniel restored full operation. The maintenance manager looked astonished. The last contractor wanted to replace the entire generator. Daniel smiled. Sometimes the smallest part causes the biggest problem. At that same moment, Victoria entered the executive conference room. A crucial meeting with international investors was about to begin. Everything depended on demonstrating the company's newest automated manufacturing system. Engineers confidently started the presentation. Seconds later, every display screen suddenly went black. Production robots froze. Emergency alarms echoed through the building. The entire research network shut down. Executives exchanged worried looks. One engineer whispered, "The backup generator failed." Another shook his head. "It shouldn't have." The room filled with tension. International investors quietly watched. Every minute of delay threatened a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The facilities manager rushed into the conference room. "The generator is working." Victoria frowned. "Then why are we still offline?" He answered immediately. The maintenance contractor fixed the generator. But he noticed something unusual. What? He said whoever originally designed our emergency electrical system understood the facility better than anyone. Victoria looked puzzled. How would a contractor know that? The manager hesitated. He didn't just recognize the design. He predicted where every hidden junction box would be before opening a single wall. Victoria slowly stood. "Bring him here." Minutes later, Daniel entered the executive conference room carrying nothing. The executive conference room remained silent after Daniel finished telling his story. No one seemed able to speak. Grace looked at her father with confusion. "Dad. You helped build this company." Daniel smiled gently. "A long time ago. When you were little." A few executives laughed softly. Daniel nodded. "I was a lot younger." CEO Victoria Lawson slowly walked toward the old framed photograph Daniel had placed on the conference table. It showed two young men wearing dusty work clothes, standing beside the company's very first rented warehouse. One was her father, Richard Lawson. The other was Daniel. Both were smiling proudly beneath a handmade sign with the company's original name painted in uneven letters. Victoria looked closely. On the back of the photograph, written in her father's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "Whatever happens, this company belongs to both of us." Her hands trembled. "I've never seen this picture." Daniel smiled sadly. "There weren't many copies." Victoria looked up. "My father never told me." "He tried." Daniel answered quietly. "But after the accident, he forgot many things." Years earlier, Richard Lawson had suffered a serious head injury in a highway crash. Although he recovered physically, parts of his long-term memory never fully returned. By then, Daniel had already left the company. He had sold his ownership for $1 before disappearing from the business world. The board members looked shocked. $1. Daniel nodded. Richard needed capital. The banks refused another loan. I had no money left. So I transferred my shares. You gave away half the company. Daniel smiled. It wasn't giving it away. It was saving our dream. Victoria slowly sat down. Tears filled her eyes. My father always told me someone sacrificed everything for him. He just couldn't remember who. Daniel reached into his worn leather folder. Inside was an old partnership agreement. Yellowed with age. Signed by both founders. Richard Lawson. Daniel Morgan. Each owning 50%. The company's legal counsel carefully examined the document. It appears authentic. Daniel nodded. I never came here to claim anything. I thought you should know the truth. Victoria looked confused. Then why are you here? Daniel smiled toward Grace. She had a school project. Bring your parent to work. I wanted her to see where some dreams begin. Grace squeezed his hand. You never told me. Daniel laughed softly. I wanted you to learn something first. What? People should remember your kindness. Not your achievements. Silence filled the room. Victoria slowly stood. I owe you an apology. She looked directly into Daniel's eyes. When I saw your truck, I judged you. I assumed success could be measured by appearances. Daniel smiled warmly. We've all done that at some point. No. Victoria shook her head. I humiliated the man who helped my father build everything I have. She took a slow breath. I can't change that. But I can choose what happens next. The following week, Victoria invited every employee to the company's annual Founders' Day celebration. For years, the event had honored only Richard Lawson. This year was different. As thousands of employees gathered in the headquarters atrium, a large curtain covered a new bronze sculpture. Victoria stepped onto the stage. For 20 years, our company has celebrated one founder. Today, we celebrate two. The curtain slowly fell. The sculpture revealed two young men standing shoulder to shoulder. Richard Lawson, Daniel Morgan, each holding one end of the company's original blueprint. The audience erupted into applause. Many employees wiped away tears as Victoria shared the forgotten history of the company's earliest days. She described late nights in an unheated warehouse. Borrowed tools. Failed prototypes. Moments when bankruptcy seemed inevitable. And the friend who quietly sacrificed everything to keep the company alive. Daniel sat in the front row looking uncomfortable. Grace whispered, "Dad. They are clapping for you." Daniel smiled. "They are clapping for teamwork." After the ceremony, Victoria approached him with another surprise. "I'd like to offer you a position." Daniel laughed. "I'm retired." "I know. I don't need another executive. I need someone to teach." She explained her vision. A founders' academy where young employees would learn not only technical skills but also integrity, humility, and leadership. No presentations. No complicated titles. I just want them to hear your stories. Daniel accepted on one condition. No reserved parking space. Victoria looked puzzled. Why? He smiled. Old Blue likes the far corner. Everyone laughed. Months later, new employees quickly learned that the quiet instructor with grease-stained boots had once helped build the entire company. Yet Daniel never mentioned it himself. Instead, he taught practical lessons. Respect every worker. Thank the cleaning staff. Admit mistakes quickly. Protect your teammates. Leave every place better than you found it. One afternoon, a young intern asked, "Mr. Morgan, what's the biggest secret to success?" Daniel looked out the workshop window toward his old rusty pickup truck. "It isn't the vehicle you drive. It isn't your office. It isn't your title." The intern waited. Daniel smiled. "It's the people who still trust you after all those years." Outside, Grace had carefully washed Old Blue while waiting for her father. Victoria walked over. "You know, we could buy him any truck in the world." Grace smiled. "I know. But he wouldn't trade this one." "Why not?" Grace looked proudly at the old pickup. "Because this truck reminds him where he started. And he never wants to forget." Years later, visitors entering Lawson Industries no longer saw only one founder's portrait. Two photographs stood side by side in the entrance hall. Richard Lawson. Daniel Morgan. Below them, a simple inscription read, "Great companies are not built by those who seek credit. They are built by those willing to share it." People remembered the story because a CEO mocked a single father's rusty truck without realizing he had helped found her company with her father. But those who knew their whole story understood that the truck itself was never important. It simply carried a man who had never measured success by what he owned, but by the promises he kept, the friendships he honored, and the legacy he quietly left behind.